righty, well, good morning everybody. Just because of time, I'm going to get started right away because I need every minute. So the way it would go, what Carlos told me is I have an option of going for like 40 minutes and then opening it to questions at the end. I already know I'm not going to have any time for questions. I'm just going to go until I run out of time. But understand this, at the end of the day, we are having a Q&A. And so if there's any questions you have, write them down and save them, and hopefully I will be able to answer them then. But my topic, as you could tell from the slide, is the Spirit of Babel today. I'm going to use the Tower of Babel event in the Bible to kind of frame what we're seeing in our world today. And really what we're talking about is how artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, robotics, and nanotechnology are humanity's latest attempt to really defy God. And so that's really what we're going to be getting into. And so because I'm covering all those topics, time is very much short. And so jumping right into it, Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9 gives us a very interesting account of what happened in history. The flood is passed for a few generations. God commanded humanity to spread out over the whole earth. And we know that they defy him. Instead, what humanity says is, no, we're going to stay right here. And we're going to build a city. We're going to make a name that's great for ourselves. And of course, they're using the technology of their day, mud brick, right? Something like mud brick, all technology, if you think about it, can be something that helps us with our dominion mandate that Carlos was talking about. That God gave us this command to subdue the earth, and we call it the dominion mandate, and technology is supposed to help us do that. But humans tend to use the technology to defy God. So mud bricks, which can make homes and a nice city, is now being used to try to make a tower where they will invade heaven itself. And of course, the people who did that are not the first to try that. You go back to Genesis chapter 3, the first guy to build a city is Cain. And think about it. God told Cain, you're going to wander. And what does Cain do? He builds a city so he doesn't have to wander. Well, that city can't be found because eventually it got destroyed in the flood. And now you have humanity here saying, we're not going to spread out. We're going to use our technology to defy God. We're going to build a tower into the heavens. We will ascend above the Most High. God knocks the tower down and he spreads them out. And, you know, looking back at the slide, I say that this is a theme that runs through the whole Bible. Cain, Nimrod in his generation in Genesis 11. Nebuchadnezzar in his generation, he actually tries to build on the ruins of the Tower of Babel. God knocks that one down as well. And then think about it, because Babel, that's where Babylon comes from. So what is the book of Revelation titled The Final Empire that raises up against God? Babylon the Great. The Whore of Babylon. So this is a theme, this rebellious theme, the spirit of Babel runs through the whole Bible. And here's the point that I would like to make with this. Verse 6, that's the one verse I'm going to highlight real quick because I got to jump into what we're talking about today. Verse 6, God says, if they have begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. What God is saying is unless he steps in and stops them, humans, when we come together in defiance of him, and he doesn't come and put the brakes on it, he's saying, like, there's nothing that's impossible for us. Now, of course, understand we can't become God. There's certain things we can't do, but what he's saying is, for the most part, the goals we're trying to achieve, no matter how wicked they are, if we come together this way and he doesn't stop us, nothing will be impossible for us. And so that is the spirit of Babel. Humanity coming together saying we want to break free of the restraints, of the shackles that God has put on us. Autonomy, as Carlos was saying. We want to be free from the control of God. And so these technologies that I'm going to be talking about today are the latest attempt of humanity trying to break out of our cocoon or our shell that God has built into us. Now, like the mud brick, it was neutral. It's how you use it. These technologies, in and of themselves, aren't all bad, but it's the way they're being used. And so I would like to talk about them. So artificial intelligence. I'll spend more time on this one because this is the one that has everybody up at night right now. Everybody's dreaming of Skynet or the Matrix. You know, AI is going to kill us all. And so let's talk about AI. Let's talk about what it is. Let's talk about whether or not it's really going to kill us. And so let me just start this way. Okay? It's getting a lot of attention. A lot of attention. On June 11th of this year, Fox News ran a report that an AI chatbot, ChatGPT, preached a full sermon in a church in Fürth, Bavaria, in Germany. It was a 40-minute sermon. The AI was asked to put together a worship service where songs were generated and sung, and then to come up with the sermon, and then to create a digital avatar that looks like a real human, a black man with a beard. That's the picture on the top there. And it looks like a real person talking with the real voice. Now, of course, it was monotone, and people said it didn't have great rhetoric, but it was able to put this all together really, really quickly. And then as a second story, this one goes back to, what date do I have on that? Forget the date. But a few months before that, AI defeats doctors on medical questions. So some people on Reddit were asking questions, and they wanted to know these medical questions, and so they had AI answer it, and then a team of doctors answered it, and then an independent team of doctors that didn't know which was from the AI and which was from other doctors, they judged it, and AI gave better answers overall than the doctors did. Okay, so this is getting a lot of attention from a lot of people. Now, some people look at this as a good thing. Others are terrified, like these people. And so we have a lot of these warnings from the experts. On May 20th, 2023, a group of AI industry leaders, celebrities, I don't know why they get invited, they just memorize lines, but celebrities, and then academics, they all get together, and then they warn of global annihilation. We need to stop AI before it kills us. Somebody, this has to be like a really, really big effort of ours. And then the guy on the top, I read his article, and I could see why this one put people in a panic. March 29th, Time Magazine ran an opinion piece from Eliezer Yudkowsky, and he's considered one of the topmost experts on this. He's a decision theorist from Machine Intelligence Research Center, and he more or less said, if we don't shut it down, we are going to die. It's pretty much what he's saying. He's saying right now the technology is, ChatGPT 4. He thinks once we get to 5, it will become self-aware, and as soon as it is self-aware, it will kill us. He's saying it's inevitable. And pretty much he's saying that what it's going to do is once it becomes self-aware, it's going to have a synthetic body created, and it will transfer its conscience into it. The first thing I was thinking was Vision from Age of Ultron. And this is what he's saying is going to happen. He said this is a greater threat than a nuclear exchange between superpowers. And said if we want to not die, everybody needs to shut this down right now. He says AI, for whatever its benefits, is not worth it. So the question for us is, how should we think about it? Should we be that scared of artificial intelligence? Is this our future with the T-1000 holding our skulls in the palm of its hand? Well, first let's talk about what AI is. AI is simulated or mimicked operations of intelligence. It's not real intelligence. Instead, it imitates or simulates what we do when it comes to computing information. So it's an information processing, it's data analysis. Now, of course, this goes back, the idea of AI, to the 1930s and sci-fi movies. The term was coined in 1955 by John McCarthy, and at that time humanity created a computer program that was able to mimic what we do in terms of solving problems. Now, from 1955 to now, the technology has grown exponentially, and now AI is doing a lot of things that have people creeped out. Now, you might be thinking, I'm against AI, I'm never touching this stuff. I hate to inform you, you are already using it. Every day I get in my car in the morning at 7, my phone tells me how many minutes it is to the gym, and it gives me alternative routes if there's traffic problems. It knows 2 hours later when I get back in my car that I'm coming here to work. And again, it tells me how to get here. When I search for something online, the next time I go online, it's sending me ads of the very thing I searched on because it's trying to help me. That is AI. Your phone processes more information than a $10,000 computer did 10, 15 years ago. It's that simple. AI, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Now, with AI, what it does is it processes a lot of information really fast. In the old days, it just used mathematics. It was a computational model. I'm sure you've heard the word algorithm. Now it uses algorithms, which is a detailed set of instructions that focuses it and makes it compute and figure out things a lot faster. Now, because of that, it makes AI a very, very useful tool. It can be used for good. Let me give you an example. Sermon Audio is an organization that hosts online expositional sermons so that people all over the world can listen to them for free. As a church, we pay Sermon Audio for our sermons to be up there. Sermon Audio right now is working on an AI program that will take our sermons and translate them into any language in the world with our voice. And so people would be hearing our sermons in our voice, and we can't even speak that language. That's what they're working on. Imagine how powerful of a tool that would be for the gospel. Businesses are able to use AI programs to gather and aggregate data a lot quicker. They could create written advertisements. That's going to cost some people some jobs, though, so that could be a bad part of it. But businesses could use it for a lot of things. We've already talked about the medical potential. Imagine if a doctor's not near, but you know AI is going to give as good of an answer if you need information right there on the spot. So the point is, a lot of good that can come from it. But we know bad could come from it as well. We know that it will replace human workers, which is going to put some people into poverty. We know that corporations use it to data mine and gather a ton of information about us. The algorithms are used to keep us addicted to social media by continually sending ads of things they know we want to watch, so that we'll get addicted and stuck in what I call the YouTube vortex or the Twitter vortex, to where you waste hours on it and then your brain feels like it needs it. Furthermore, you have to understand, because this is human-made and it's given a set of instructions, the set of instructions are going to reflect the biases of the person who put those instructions in there. This is why AI pushes transgenderism and it pushes it to teenagers specifically, and only positive stuff. And then when we say the truth about it, it suppresses it as hate speech. Now listen, AI is not making that decision. It is simply operating according to the program parameters that the humans that designed it put in it. So again, these are some of the things we have to consider. Now, again, I have to go fast, so I'm going to skip some of my stuff. My question is it going to kill us? How should we be thinking about this? There's a really brilliant Christian apologist named Feni Premkumar, and he offers some good advice on it. He says, here's what you should do with AI. 3 A's: appreciation, apprehension, application. So let me talk about appreciation. Appreciation, think of what I said about Sermon Audio. Think about the ways this could help with medicine and just how quick you're able to gather information. That's great. So we should appreciate it first. We're Christians. We should be optimistic. But then we move to apprehension. What about AI can cause apprehension for us? Well, first, there's an oversaturation of it. When I was a kid, I had about 30 people's phone numbers memorized. Now I only got 2. Mine and my mom's. That's it. And so there's certain aspects of our brain where we're losing those functions because we're not using it. 2,000 years ago, there were people who regularly memorized Homer's entire Iliad, and their job was to recite the entire thing off memory. We can't even come close to doing that anymore because we're not using those parts of our brain because we have so much help. And so, and not only that, if you're using AI for research, understand that there's some things it's not going to give you because of the bias of the programmer. So you still need to know how to do research yourself. Now, again, the main reason people are apprehensive of it is because they think it's going to kill us. So I think I need to talk just for a second about AI. There's 2 theoretical kinds of AI: weak AI and strong AI. Weak AI is what you already have. It's on your phone, it's a tool, it computes information. Strong AI is AGI or ASI. AGI refers to artificial general intelligence. And this is the idea that eventually it will develop to where it's thinking on its own. It's not following a program. It wants to do something and then does it, just like us. And then once you have AGI, the next level is ASI, artificial superior intelligence. That's when you have Skynet. That's when we die, okay? Because Ultron realizes that we're a plague and he turns our own nukes on us unless Iron Man is there to stop him. It's that simple. That's the idea behind it. But here's why you don't have to worry about this. Here's why it's just fear-mongering in a sense. Humans, in our mind, we have what is called agency. We have a soul. We have intentionality. The reason why the experts think this stuff's going to happen is because they think we're just made out of matter. They think all we are data analyzers. Now, there's things we do that don't look like data analysis. But they have to say on their worldview, well, no, it has to be that. It's just a really complex form of it. And one day, AI will be able to do the same thing. But here's the thing. Intentionality and agency is not a matter of calculation. It's a matter of will. It's a matter of will, and the matter of the will is a matter of mind. And our mind and our brain are not the same thing. Now, if you're an evolutionist and you think the only thing that exists are atoms, then you have no other choice but to think that. But you can't explain a lot of stuff. We, because we're Christians, we know that we are a psychosomatic union. We are a combination of spirit and body. And mind is a function of the spirit. It's part of the image of God, and that cannot be transferred to machines. It can't. All the AI could do is get better and better at calculating, and it even looks like it's having fun with you, but that's just part of the program. It's part of the program. They will never become a person. You know, in 1997, people got all freaked out. I'll put this back up for the people who will be watching this online. This picture at the bottom, 1997, an AI machine called Deep Blue defeated the world chess champion, made him look like an amateur. But here's my point. So people are like, oh my gosh, it's smarter than our smartest chess player. Listen, it's not smart. It followed a program about chess. All it could do, which was a lot, but it could compute 200 million moves per minute. A human can't mathematically compute that. But the AI didn't know it won. It didn't celebrate. It didn't give itself a digital glass of wine. It just followed a program. The only person who had feelings there was the human that got beat, got whooped, like, man, this machine beat me, or whatever. So the point is, you can never have agency in this. It will not become Ultron. It can't. So if you're afraid of that, it's because you're thinking like the world. They have to think like that because they think atoms are all that exist. But we know better, okay? We know better on this. So how should Christians think about this? The Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention put a really good statement out there in 2019. I'm going to read the preamble of it. It's up there on the screen. They wrote this: Christians must not fear the future or any technological development because we know that God is above all sovereign over history and that nothing will ever supplant the image of God in which human beings are created. We recognize that AI will allow us to achieve unprecedented possibilities while acknowledging the potential risks posed by AI if used without wisdom and care. Okay, so simply put, we've all read our Bibles. Does the book of Revelation end with us all being wiped out by Skynet? No. So it's not going to happen. You don't have to worry about that. But because it is a tool, we then move to the application side of this a little bit. Because it's a tool, it can be used for good and evil. The ones using it are the ones responsible for it. That top picture there is an AI-run drone delivering medical supplies to save lives. That is an example of loving God and loving neighbor with AI. That is using it for human flourishing. The bottom one is a military AI-operated drone. And by the colors, I think it's Chinese, but I didn't check for sure. For all you know, it might be ours, and here I am, just being a fool. But the point is, that is designed to kill. Now, if we don't build it, they will, and so I get all that. But just understand, as humans, we have a responsibility to use this right. And the people, the power brokers who have the most control over it, they're going to use it for evil. And I do think that's part of the spirit of Babel. Being able, in the wrong hands, and it is primarily going to be in the wrong hands, the most powerful uses of it is going to be to manipulate and push people towards rebellion against God. It's going to push them towards the autonomy that Carlos was warning about in his first lecture. That's what it's already doing. So if we know that, we know not to let it affect us that way, and we know to use it and resource it for sermons and medicine and stuff like that. But also understand, if you're a pastor or you dream of being a pastor and you let AI write your sermons, you need to resign. Because sermon writing and preaching is something that requires the Holy Spirit, not just data analysis. Okay, so the thing is, AI, even though it could help, it will never replace the person-to-person incarnational ministry that is required of Christians, of people as believers. So just keep that all in mind. So that's AI for you. What about genetic engineering? I spent a lot of time on AI because everybody's scared of it, but hopefully you're not scared of it anymore and you just understand that it's a tool like any other. Genetic engineering, I think, is worse because people are truly playing God with this. And so I'm going to do my best to fly through this. Hopefully not too fast, but it probably will be too fast. Simply put, genetic engineering, by definition, is an attempt to change or alter human genes. That's what it is. Now, there's two kinds, an uncontroversial kind and a controversial kind. The uncontroversial kind is called somatic gene therapy. What is somatic gene therapy? Simply put, let's say you already have an adult. He's got some sort of disease. What people can do, what scientists could do, is they could use a virus to insert brand new genes into. They could be modified genes, they could be artificially created genes, or they could be genes from someone else. But you attach it to a virus, the virus then changes the DNA of the person, and it could get rid of the disease, or at least mitigate it. And you might say, well, that's awful, it's changing our DNA. Listen, every time you get a virus, the virus changes your DNA. That's how this works, right? It's using the virus to do what the virus already does. They're using it for a medicinal purpose. And the reason why people aren't worried about this kind is because it doesn't pass on to descendants. It's just medicine in that sense. Now, theoretically, you could use it to enhance an athlete, but roids are a cheaper, easier way to do it. So you're probably not going to see people, not hemorrhoids, steroids. And so you're probably going to see not see a lot of people use it for evil. Now, the second method of genetic engineering, though, this is the one that is unethical 100% of the time. It is called germline genetic engineering. It happens at the level of the sperm and the egg. So sperm, egg come together. You have an embryo. It starts off with separating the cells of the embryo, taking one cell out, and then you could either delete, add, or modify the genes. And then you destroy that embryo. And then you take another egg, you pull the nucleus out of that egg, and you put this modified cell in the place of that nucleus, and it becomes an embryo that starts dividing. And if you implant it into a womb and it comes full term, you're going to have a genetically altered baby. You're going to have somebody who is altered in the lab. And it doesn't just have to be like human genes. You could combine human and animal genes, and once you put it in that nucleus, if it starts to cell divide, this could go all the way. Now, that's illegal, but the potential's there. Now, this picture here of this green monkey, back in 2001, in a petri dish, they combined jellyfish DNA with the monkey, and it was born, and the monkey glows in the dark. And then the monkey passed this on to his descendants, and so those monkeys glow in the dark. Now, will that help it? Let's say in terms of natural selection, no, the tiger has a lot easier time finding that monkey, and he's going to think he tastes better because he's green. But, the bottom line is this is the type of stuff that they could do. Now, the reason why CRISPR comes into play is CRISPR has provided a cheap, easy way to do this. Genetic engineering, what I just mentioned, is the hard way. But CRISPR is the easy way to where now it could be done by somebody. It doesn't have to be a government. It could be somebody with a private lab. And I could promise you this is happening in labs unknown, that the governments of the world aren't tracking. Weird stuff is being done. And I'll give the layman version of how CRISPR works. CRISPR stands for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. We all knew that, right? And the way that it would work, CRISPR in theory, is there's a particular type of enzyme in bacteria that has an immune system where it searches for DNA, and once it attaches to it, it absorbs that DNA into it. And it now becomes part of it. But you might say, well, how does it do that? The enzyme has its own ability to cut its DNA strand, add the new DNA to it, and then repair the cut. Something that happens at a precise level without scientists having to go in at this very small level. It'll do it on its own. Now, where the Cas9 comes in is pretty much you have CRISPR something systems. CRISPR. A Cas is a CRISPR-associated system. So you have this CRISPR technology, but then there's different versions of it we find in nature. The one that they've titled Cas9, or CRISPR-associated System 9, this is the one that now gives them the opportunity to do this, because what it does is it has RNA, and that RNA attacks, you select a target, the RNA sticks into that target and starts absorbing the DNA on one end of it. But the end of the RNA that's still sticking out, you could then insert the modified genes into it, and then it's going to cut that original DNA and push it into there, and now you've changed it. And you could do this cheap, you could do this easy. In 2015, there were reports of this happening in human embryos in Petri dishes. Now, as Christians, that bothers us because they killed those embryos, and those are made in the image of God. But the world doesn't get outraged at that because they're just fools in that sense. But in 2018, the world got shocked when in China, some actual genetic CRISPR-modified babies were born. And so then the world was outraged. But you know what's going to happen? That outrage doesn't last too long, does it? Instead, what people are going to say, well, if the Chinese are doing it and we know they got no moral compass, well, now we got to do it. And here's the problem with this. With this technology, there's this temptation, this ever-growing temptation to improve humanity. We want to improve humanity. We can make ourselves stronger, taller, better looking. You could pick eye color, all that kind of stuff. And if we want to be stronger, maybe mix some lion DNA in there. And now it's like, you know, maybe you could win that wrestling match with Samson. I don't think so, though. But anyhow. And so, again, the temptation is now we could edit out our diseases. We can make these superhumans. We can make these superhumans. And again, you could add animal DNA, which then would create a chimera. You know, so this is all crazy. But don't think that it's not happening. Okay, and I'll give an example of this happening, but I threw the divergent thing at the bottom because the whole point of that divergent dystopia is humans did this, and by genetically engineering, it passed on to the future descendants, and now there were certain things that were missing. And so now people were born and they could only fit in these factions, and the world almost blew itself up over it. And so pretty much they're waiting for a normal human to be born to fix things, and that's a divergent person. That's what they call divergent. And so if you ever took those divergent tests and when the movie came out and you're like, well, I'm 3 different factions, I'm divergent. It's because you're a normal human that hasn't been edited. But if the editing happens, that's the kind of thing that author was warning us about. Yet scientists press on, oh, we could stop it. When it comes to this whole chimera thing, in 2011, according to UK Daily Mail, there were already more than 150 animal-human hybrid embryos created in their labs. Now, none of them were implanted, but they were still created. You know, and if it worked with the monkey, it could work with people as well. So this is just crazy stuff. This stuff is happening. Now, germline engineering requires 2 things. If you're going to do this, it requires first a change in how we make babies, okay? You make babies, we do the normal way, right? A loving conjugal union between a husband and a wife. But to the scientists, that's unpredictable. You got millions of sperm cells and you have, eggs, and you don't know what's going to connect and, what those babies are going to be like. So they're saying it's a lot better, a lot cleaner to do this in the lab. So abstract the procreation of kids outside of the sexual union and do it in a lab where it's cleaner, where it's predictable, and all that type of stuff. Now, of course, if you're going to edit genes, you then also have to have the ability to clone. So I do need to talk a little bit about cloning. How does cloning work? Well, this picture, I'll leave it up here for a while. On the left, I took this from the book Christian Bioethics. And so it's self-explanatory. On the left side is normal sexual reproduction. On the right side is cloning. And I will give the fast layman explanation really quickly. When you have a regular union between a man and a woman, the woman's egg has, so a human's made of 46 chromosomes. 23 of those chromosomes are in the egg's nucleus. 23 of those are in the sperm. So then the 2 come together, you get a 46 chromosome human being that is a combination of mom and dad. Okay? Cloning removes that nucleus from the egg. So the woman's 23 chromosomes are gone. And then it takes what's called a somatic cell, a full-grown adult cell, and it places it in that nucleus. And then it uses electricity or chemicals to start a reaction, and then it starts cell dividing and becomes a zygote. Now think about this. By taking out the 23 chromosomes of the mom, but putting in a full adult cell that already has the 46 chromosomes, you only have the 46 chromosomes of the person who offered the cell. The clone would be an exact genetic replica to the detail. Okay? Now, this is called reproductive cloning. Most people say, oh, we would never do that. Reproductive cloning's evil, it's unethical. We're not going to have Attack of the Clones and a bunch of Boba Fett's becoming, or Jango Fett's becoming, warriors for the Republic. They say that it's not going to be that, but there's a different kind of cloning. And by the way, I don't believe somebody's doing this somewhere. Okay, there might already be clones out there for all we know. I don't trust humanity to say, oh, we will put the brakes on this. I mean, the technology exists. They cloned a sheep, right? A long time ago. Now, when it comes to the second type of cloning, it's called therapeutic cloning. In fact, let me put that back up. This little ring around the cells is called a trophoblast. And what they do is they destroy that, and then they pull these cells out of the middle of the embryo. Those cells are stem cells. And with stem cells, pretty much they think that they could then cure diseases and all that, but they have to kill the embryo every time they do that. And then this whole stem cell thing, if you want to be creeped out a little bit, here's a creeper for you. With stem cells alone, without an egg, without sperm, without a somatic cell, with just the stem cells, they program them to develop into an embryo, a yak yolk, a placenta, and an embryo. Now, they have to kill them by like day 7. But in rats and monkeys, by like day 12 to 14, it starts developing a heart and a brain. Without an egg, without a sperm, just with the stem cell. Now, every time they've implanted it in the animals, it dies. And so instead of them saying, okay, we shouldn't be tampering, they're like, we need to figure out pregnancy better and be able to replicate pregnancy. Then we could actually make babies synthetically, and there's no laws about synthetic babies, right? And so that's kind of where this is all going. It's pretty creepy. And so as they're trying to figure out pregnancy, look, here's where the futurists want to go with it. Where they want to take it is pretty much here. Cornell University in 2001, its researchers created artificial womb lining. Lining synthetically that does exactly what lining in a womb will do. Their goal, and I don't know how close they came to achieving it because it's been 21 years, or 22 years, but their goal is to make a full artificial womb that could just be plugged into a machine and have the exact functions of a womb, and then you can implant these genetically engineered embryos into those wombs, just like the Matrix, which was serving the machines, or just like Attack of the Clones. You can make them all look a certain way, or Man of Steel, where in Krypton, Superman was the only naturally born kid, all the rest were like pre-designed, so Zod was a fighter, Jor-El was a scientist. They're already thinking of this stuff. And listen, they don't get the ideas from the movies. The movies get the ideas from what these researchers are writing about in their academic papers. So again, what's this all have to do with the spirit of Babel? We don't like the way we are. We don't like the limitations of the fall. We're not happy enough just to use somatic germ therapy or somatic cell therapy, gene therapy to cure diseases. Instead, we want to alter the human genome. We want to use technology to pick our designer babies and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, if designer babies do get born, and then you don't want to have a designer baby, your kid's going to have a hard time competing and will likely be in poverty. So it becomes this type of thing that really could undo a lot. All because, let's cast off the restraints of the Most High. Now the next one, robotics. I'm going to turn the air on. I think this many bodies in here has made it hot. Well, actually it's 68 degrees, but I'm still going to turn it on. Oh, it died. Okay. I give up. So robotics. If I had a robot working on it, we'd be fine. I'm not going to talk as much about robotics, but simply put, back in the scientific revolution, we're talking 1600s, they actually built simple robots. They were just little mechanical designs that would use water power or whatever, but we know it's come a long way since then. Futurists dream of using AI to run a robot, so you'll have a bunch of C-3POs and R2-D2s and all that. But what's more than that is, I guess we'd call it cyborgs, but it's going to be more than that. What folks want, what the plan is to unite humanity and robotics together so we could exceed our limitations as flesh and blood creatures. And there's an actual well-funded program called the Russian 2045 program. And this is pretty much what it is. They have 4 phases. Phase 1 is they want to build a robot avatar that could function like a human, and it would be run through, like you controlling it with a brain interface. They plan to have that done by 2025. That's just 2 years from now. I don't know if they will be done with it. Phase 2 10 years later is to take the brain of somebody at the end of their life and transplant it into the avatar. Thinking that the full conscious, see, again, they think the soul, they don't think we have a soul, they think we're just a brain. So they think they could put it in there and all of a sudden now I have a robot body and I'll never die till my brain dies, which eventually the brain would still die. So that's why they need a phase 3, which they plan to have 10 years later, which they can make a synthetic brain artificially and then figure out how to transfer the essence of your real brain into the artificial one. And then whenever that artificial one dies, you just get a new one, swap it out, and now you have immortality. But you're still limited. You're limited to space. And so phase 4 is you become a hologram body that's spiritual and could disappear and reappear wherever you want, but your mind is still attached to it. Exactly how, I don't know, but just to let you know, this is well funded. They have teams of neuroscientists that are supposed to help with the brain transplant when they do it. Now we know it's not going to work, but again, do I even have to explain how this is the spirit of Babel? I don't want to be flesh and blood, and I want to be... I want to exceed these physical limitations. It's almost like they're trying to get a resurrection body through robotics. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is nanotech. Nanotech could be really good. But again, what people might choose to do with it could be really bad. And again, I'm going to have to talk fast through this. I have a lot more information than I have time left to give. Nanotechnology comes from the word nanometer, a billionth of a meter. When you get things that small, they're at the size of an atom. And theoretically, what they could then do is move and rearrange atoms. Now you might think, sci-fi. Well, Israel scientists in 2001 created a nanobot. They created in a lab with biological molecules a programmable computer that was so small that you could fit 1 trillion of them in a single drop of a watery solution. So that's why it's called a nanobot. Now, I don't think they were able to do anything magnificent with it, but that's the start, okay? And so the idea then is if you could have nano machines, nanobots, these small little things, and they're as small as atoms, they can move atoms around. Okay? Now, we haven't got there yet. Instead, nanotech is just embedding things into materials at a nano size level. And so we have nanofiber reinforced plastic, wrinkle-resistant fabrics. That's all nanotech, and that's not crazy. Okay? LCD TV screens, that's nanotech. So there's a lot of good uses of it. It's not going to get into your brain and start eating it, like these little bots jumped out of my TV. No, we're not there yet. But where they want to go with it is they want to build a nano assembler. And so imagine that you have a nano assembler that is actually able to be programmed to move atoms itself. And imagine if it self-replicates, and it only takes 15 minutes to self-replicate. In 10 hours, you'll have 68 million of them, mathematically. And imagine if on one side of them, you put grass in. And because it can move atoms around, it breaks all the atoms apart of the grass, seizes the carbon, and then goes out into nature and pulls the other atoms needed to turn it into beef. Because again, carbon bonds with almost everything. And so on one side of the nano bots, you send in grass, on the other side comes out a steak, and yet there was never a living cow. Now you might say preposterous, but if you've ever taken a chemistry class, you know all the elements is from lightest to heaviest, it's giving you the number of atoms. And what kinds of atoms? And so if a machine's small enough to move it around and reassemble this to look like that, it changes. And you might say, well, but that still just seems so crazy to me. Listen, nature already does this. You plant a potato seed into the ground. The seed germinates. It's taking soil, water, and sunlight, and it rearranges the very atoms themselves to become a potato. God built this kind of thing into nature. Cows, when they eat the grass, sorry to be crass, but they don't poop the grass out. What happens, well, they poop the waste out, and then we use it to grow more grass. But what they do is when they eat the grass, their body absorbs the grass, breaks the molecules apart, and their body absorbs it, and it becomes part of the cow. Okay, that is nano-assembly happening at a natural level. What humans want to do is do this at an unnatural level. Now they start daydreaming and they start saying, but think of the potential. We could put these things in our bloodstream and look, they could zap, cancer cells. They could regrow organs because it could just take some grass and turn it into an organ, So they think that they could even use it to somehow connect your brain to a robot. I don't know how they would pull that off. Again, they're assuming that your soul is in your brain, and it's not. But this is what they would like to do. And to, shut the environmentalists up, they'd say we could send it into the atmosphere and it could eat pollution and spit out, something grand. And again, trees do that. Trees suck in carbon dioxide, and what do? They push out oxygen. So they're just trying to replicate what you kind of see in nature. But again, if you could put these in your bloodstream to where they keep repairing us, and they even say if you could put them in your brain, they could enhance your neural pathways to the point where you could write a book in 5 minutes. That's their goal with this, again, to transcend our limitations. So where is this all going? Transhumanism. Transhumanism is the ultimate goal of the spirit of Babel. And so let me just real fast go through transhumanism. Using all these technologies in tandem, they're wanting to break out of what we are and become more than what we are. And there's an actual association with a lot of powerful, rich people called the Transhumanist Association that was founded in 1998, and it exists for this purpose. Now, you can only think this way if you believe in the theory of evolution. If we are accident byproducts of chance, and we're going to evolve anyway, now we have the intelligence to choose how we will evolve. And so we could use AI to enhance our brains. We could use robotics to enhance our strength. We could use germline editing to replace organs. You could grow your organ in a pig and then take it out of that pig and transport it in you. We could use the nanobots to kill all diseases when they come into you. This is what they're thinking, right? That we could grow past all of our limitations. We could evolve. And even in biology, so cancer, the problem with cancer is it produces, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but telomerase, it's probably not how you say it, telomerase, I don't know. It produces that, and that's why cancer doesn't die. It keeps spreading. That prevents it from aging. So researchers were like, if we could find a way to produce that outside of cancer, that'd be great. They found a way. It was maybe 5-6 years ago. So the question is, if they're able to edit a germline and put that in the body to produce that, cells won't age. So this kind of stuff, theoretically, is possible. And that's what they want. They want Homo sapiens to become what they call Homo permanens. Now, again, crazy stuff when you hear about it. Creation Ministry International, they're my favorite creationist group. They first started covering this movement in 2011, and they say by 2023, it's got even worse, and now the Biden presidential administration is funding some of the research for some of this transhumanism. And so it's out there. This is what people want to do. But again, it kind of makes sense if you don't believe in God, and you believe in evolution, and you want to somehow live forever. They're trying to get immortality and dominion on their own terms, just like they did at Babel. We're not going to do it God's way. We're going to do it our way. And so what I want to close with in the last couple minutes I have is first, it's futile. Okay, Cain City fell underwater. The Tower of Babel is ruins. Every kingdom that's raised its hand against God is in the dustbin of history now. Okay, so they will not succeed. Okay, but God did say nothing would be impossible for them if he didn't stop them. So I just want you to think. One, I have no doubt in my mind that this is all stuff that's going to be used as it brings us towards that final one world revolution against God. Humanity is going to be so brazenly stupid, they show up to a battlefield to fight God. And Jesus just speaks and they all die. Okay, so I think it's going to take a lot of this stuff to make man think they even got a chance. Right? So we're going to see this stuff move towards globalization and all that. But God's going to stop it from reaching their ultimate goals. But I want you to think about this. What if they reach their ultimate goal? What if somehow they could do all of this? It's still weak in comparison to what God has for us. When we get resurrected, we are going to have glorious bodies that are both physical and spiritual body. So we're here, but we can do some pretty crazy things like what they want to do with the hologram. Jesus was able to teleport. And when he's resurrected, he's outside of the locked doors, and then he appears in the room. And then he's talking with people, he breaks bread, and then he vanishes, and then he's in Galilee. So we're going to have a body like his. We'll be able to travel in and outside of the 3 dimensions. Remember, we're going to be more powerful than angels because we judge angels. One angel killed 185,000 Assyrians in a single night. The best man could do can't compete with that power. And yet we're going to be more powerful than angels, and we're going to judge them. Jesus was able to ascend into the clouds. I think that means flight, loved ones, right? So we're going to have these glorious, powerful bodies, incapable of sin, and we're going to be in a new heaven, a new earth where entropy isn't around anymore, where nothing breaks down, and it's perfect all the time. And we will be able to see God. If these guys succeeded at what they wanted, they became immortal, and then God stopped being invisible and just appeared to them, it would obliterate them. So they can't get as powerful as they want, but we will see God's face with his name written on our forehead forever and ever and ever. And think about this. The Bible says the Holy Spirit dwells within us as a small part now, like a down payment. That means the level of the Holy Spirit that we get in the resurrection is going to put this to shame. Now, Christ and the apostles did some pretty amazing things by the power of the Holy Spirit. Samson did some pretty amazing things by the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's just a small little deposit. Imagine the omnipotent third person of the Trinity animating you for the rest of your existence at the greatest level omnipotence can work within a finite being. That is the power and ability that we are going to have. These chumps can't even come close. They can't. So don't long for what they're trying to create in their rebellion. What God is going to give us by faith is 1,000 times better. Now, if you want to know where to look to find out more about this stuff, a book that I recommend is Bill McKibben's Enough, Staying Human in an Engineered Age. I don't think he's a Christian, but that's when I first got introduced to this, and it creeped me out at first. But then I had to think a little more about it. There's a good Christian bioethics book called Christian Bioethics by Ben Mitchell and Dr. Joy Riley. And then, of course, all these websites are just where I got these current stories. These are all within the last 4 or 5 months to show you that this stuff isn't old information, it's new information. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this one, and I believe it's 11:02, and you only got 13 minutes of a break now. I apologize for that. Thanks.